Whoa, take it higher than the basement. That's the final destination. I had the time and dedication. That's why my mind had elevation. Welcome to the YouTube. It's the first episode ever. First of all time. First ever. You know? So this is history in the making. But we ain't gonna get too caught up in the bullshit. We're gonna get straight to the source. We're gonna get straight down to the meat and potatoes. You know? Like, you didn't have to click on this video. You didn't even have to look at the thumbnail, if we're being honest. But since you did, I'm gonna make it worth your while. I'm gonna give you some information that you can apply directly to your life and your mind state, or not, and you could just contemplate on it. Either way, good looking. Now, with that being said, let's get into it. The date is May 22nd, 2025. I started research for this video on May 20th. That was the day after Malcolm X's birthday, which would have been on the 19th of May. And if I'm being real with you, I forgot that was his birthday. I mean, nobody was talking about it, though. Ain't nobody said nothing about Malcolm X. But that's me, though. That's my little bubble. And I found out the day after. So, I don't know. I found that a little weird. I ain't gonna lie. I found that a little strange. But if you think about it, like, what's going on in the world right now, that Malcolm X conversation would be super relevant. So, like, why ain't that, like, a thing? I mean, it could have just been my algorithm. But then again, it's like, I ain't hear about it in real life, though. But we gonna talk about it now. For sure. Speaking truth to power. Hotep, brother. Hotep. Now, as we transitioning in the Gemini season from Taurus, that's when I sat back and realized it was perfect for me to start this right now. Because we transition from the Taurus grounded, stable, nurturing type of energy, home energy, into a Gemini, more adventurous, communicative, intelligent type of dual energy, like dual. Remember that word, dual. It's gonna pop up in this episode a couple times. Duality. You also got a duel, like a fight. Two people dueling. Two people fighting it out. Conflict. Duality. It's the same things. You know what I'm saying? It's just, English is a weird ass language, but we ain't gonna get into that right now. But throughout this, though, I'm gonna be asking some rhetorical questions, and I'm not gonna give an answer. But that just means that I'm like saying, like, think about it on your own type shit. You know what I'm saying? Think about it. Just contemplate that shit. Just contemplate that shit. Yeah. If he was still alive today, he would have been 100 years old. Malcolm X, that is. Or El Haj Malik Shabazz. I mean, he had a lot of names. He's really like a myth for real, like a legend for real. Like he was hated on. Crazy. They hated on him like crazy. Like, they knew he was a problem. And his mentality was sovereign. But I think you can accredit a lot of that to the fact, if you really pay attention, he had a problem solving mentality. I honestly think he was the opposite of a victim. Like, he didn't think like a victim at all. He's like a master alchemist. And he was uncomfortable being comfortable. Think about that. He was uncomfortable being comfortable. That's what I'm aiming for. That's what I've been aiming for. So, like, preparing for the future, breaking past limitations type of shit. This is like a lifestyle at this point. Just testing myself, testing my mind, testing my ability to think. But you gotta test the ability to silence the mind too, though. You can't just be able to think without stopping. It's a control valve, but you gotta find it. It's hidden in the cut. But once you find it, you got a cheat code for life. You can speed up time, you can slow it down, you can keep it neutral, but you in the seat of control. But if you move your feet, you lose your seat. So stay in the seat, because if you get out the seat, who's driving? That was the first rhetorical question. Let's move on. Know your enemy and yourself, and victory is assured. Sun Tzu. Ashe. Yeah, this ain't Zeus, man. This ain't Zeus. This ain't baddies. No. No, this ain't baddies, man. And I ain't even here to bash them. Because if you hold biases or grudges towards the side, I feel like you just simply throwing yourself off balance. That's all you're doing. There's nothing productive in that. A lot of people's loyal to their side, though. And they say loyalty is a virtue. But for real, if you think about it, it's more like a chain. If you're quick to give it up, that's when you turn into a slave. But then again, if you expect it but you don't deserve it, you end up like a tyrant. You see what I'm saying? That's where the shit gets the lesser of two evils. You know, the point is to get the whole story. Not a quarter of the story. Not half of it. Not 75%. Because why would you not want to get the moral of the story? The entire bigger picture, the lesson. The most important part. Why would you want to miss that? You don't want to miss it. Nobody wants to miss it. I feel like a lot of people just don't know how to see it. So I'm going to give my perspective of how I see it in my own life. Hopefully I can help you. And we got to look at context when we talk about figures like Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey and etc. Like those type of figures, because there ain't no Malcolm X day. Ain't no days for figures like these who was anti-U.S. government. Labeled terrorists by COINTELPRO, a FBI counterintelligence program. It was labeled domestic terroristic threats to the U.S. government. So we got to understand how propaganda works, especially when we're talking about counterintelligence programs and trying to persuade audiences. But then I had to ask myself, like, what is the purpose of a counterintelligence program? What is the counter to intelligence? I would think that it would be the suppression of information. That would be my guess. And if that's the case, we still have a problem with that to this day. Yeah, so this is very much relevant, very much in context with what the situation is going on with society right now. And you know it's bad when a government got to break its own laws that it put into effect in order to stop information from circulating, certain ideas or ideologies from circulating amongst the public. But the extent, if you watch the extent that they'll go to stop this information, it just goes to show the potency of it, the truth behind it. Because why are you so concerned with something if it isn't true? You know, if it's misinformation, let it go. And in my experience through life, time always tells all. So if something is built on a foundation of lies, eventually it will crumble anyways. I don't know. That's just my opinion. That's why I don't feel the need to speak on lies too much, when I could really direct my attention and focus on the truth and reiterate that, because it's always more power in the truth. It's more substance. And when it comes to Malcolm, I feel like the main thing everybody wants to talk about is the assassination. But truth be told, I'll probably get into that deeper on a different episode. But there was a whole movement, like I said, that was aimed at interrupting black nationalists, black liberation movements, anything like that. Anything like that was being deemed as terroristic domestic threat. And we'll really cross that bridge when we get there. But for now, all I got to say is Zionism. Zionism. That's all I got to say. Now, this is a PSA. I'm 24. I'm born in 2000, right at the end of December on the 13th. And I can't speak for everybody. But for who I can speak for, I say that to say this. The youth, because I consider myself still part of the youth. I'm almost out of there. But I'm still there. We know the finesse game because it's programmed into us. Like subconsciously. Because if you realize like brainwashing only works on certain type of people. Certain people, it has the opposite effect. Like you can use the same techniques to try to control someone else's mind and it'll work. And then you'll use those same techniques on someone else and they give them a sense of motivation. You know, they can adapt. Adaptability is key. Once they adapt to those strategies, it'll never work on them. It's like the 99.9% bacteria on the hand sanitizer bottle. It's the same scenario. And yeah, you killed that 99.9%, but there's still that 0.1% that's alive. Now it's a juggernaut. You know, it's a tank. You can't hit that 0.1% with the same hand sanitizer and expect it to do anything because it's adapted. And really, it's not even the same no more because it genetically evolved to adapt to it. So now it ain't even really the same entity no more. It's something else to transform. And that's what's happening right now. So I tell them, keep throwing everything they want at us, keep throwing all the lies, because all we going to do, flip it to the truth. That's all it takes. It ain't that complicated. And I can speak for like maybe myself and maybe some other people, but we know that like alchemy wasn't just about transferring lead to gold. That's like a surface level way of looking at it. It's a mentality thing. And you can always, and it doesn't matter what time period you in, everybody had a mind. Everybody had thoughts. So when it's like, when you see older people, they might look at us like we don't know what we talking about when it come to alchemy and ancient sciences and things like that. I ask that we all humble ourselves because everybody has access to the World Wide Web. Everybody has access to damn near every book that was ever written. And it's never a knock on the older generations because we got to respect our elders no matter what. They came before us. That's the foundation. So at the same time, we got to respect our own intuition and follow our path fearlessly. And time alone doesn't determine how much experience somebody gets along their journey. I feel like that's a factor of attention. Because, for example, two people could be studying the same subject. One person studies for a day, the other person for a week. And the person who studies for a day can retain more knowledge simply based off of intention and attention versus the person who studied for a week and barely studied 10 minutes a day. And when they was studying the 10 minutes, they was doing something else distracted. So they didn't learn anything. Time alone is not going to determine how much knowledge or experience that you get as you moving along this path. It's more based off of the focus and attention, if you really think about it. Because the present moment is eternal throughout this whole journey of life. Every time you experience something fully, it's in the present moment. And you can't experience the past or future with nowhere near as much detail as you can experience right now. Like, I can look at the lines on my hand right now and count them, measure them with a ruler. That's how precise this consciousness is, for real. But when we remember everything got two sides, there's two sides to that too. There's another side that's very unprecise. It's the illogical, unpredictable, abstract, chaotic type of side. And the crazy thing is, I feel like when most people hear those words, they instantly get a negative connotation. Abstract, unknown, unpredictable. It all sounds dangerous. But what if we were programmed to think that these type of concepts is dangerous, and that the only way to go is structure and order and discipline? I mean, we're not saying that those are bad traits at all. We're not saying that, but we also saying there's two sides to every story. Any athlete that's really trying to compete on a high level, or not even just athlete, anybody that's trying to compete on a high level, they're gonna attack their weaknesses in training. And the reason that you will focus on more than just your strengths is because if you focus only on your strengths, eventually you will become predictable. It's inevitable to your opponent. If they see that you're banking on this one particular trait or even a particular style, like eventually they're gonna test out to see if you can do the opposite of that. And if you continuously banking on that, there's a good chance that you're not well trained in the opposite. And when we talking about opposites and pairs, that's the perfect transition in the Gemini season. Am I wrong? Twin. Say twin. It's a lot of twin talk been going on. A lot of twin talk. A lot of y'all is not twins though. Everybody talking about twin. What up, twin? Y'all ain't got nothing in common. And if y'all do got something in common, you don't even really got it in common. Because y'all just do both copying off of some trendy shit. So what is really a twin? Let's get into it. Really, if we're gonna be for real, that's just a sign that loyalty has lost almost all of its meaning. It's like, at this point, profit is God to a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? They not even looking at the next person. They looking at how can I possibly get over? How can I get over? It's almost like a scarcity survival mindset just spread across the people like a virus, and it got to a point of delusion to where it's people's just that the fear it's not even justified. It's not even warranted. But we ain't scared to talk about it. So we're going to get into it. It's Gemini season. Communication is key. Feel me? And we going to be speaking on the truth. Because ain't no danger in speaking on the truth. I don't know what nobody told you. But ain't no danger in that. It's quite the opposite. And with that being said, let me know down in the comments if y'all seen Sinners. It was a decent little movie. I like that movie. They had to set the twins in it too. It wasn't no Zack and Cody, but very symbolic movie, very relevant. Extremely relevant for real, if we being honest. Give you advantage. It really give you advantage in preparation for mental warfare. That's the main reason I like it. I feel like I seen it at the right time. The perfect time for me to see it. And yeah, I got the message for sure. Definitely recommend it. I notice it's a lot of people scared of AI. A lot of spiritual people were scared of AI most of the time from a religious perspective. But I ain't gonna lie, I use Google Gemini for some of this. Just because it's Gemini season. And I know some people will be like, oh, the more I ask the AI questions, the more it learns about the human brain, and then it can take over the world, or it can figure out where I stay and get my personal information. Bro, not that important. But anyway, the word Gemini is Latin for twins. In the Greek mythology, it was associated with Castor and Pollux, two twins that represented the two brightest stars in the Gemini constellation. But the Romans came and adopted the story too. They had two twins, but their twins was named Romulus and Remus. And Romulus and Remus was said to be the ones who founded Rome, but they was raised by a she-wolf. So they had that dog in them. They definitely had that dog in them. But we ain't saying that's necessarily a positive thing to have that dog in you. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But for right now, we're going to talk about bipolar disorder. You know, I was kind of conflicted on whether or not I wanted to talk about this. Kept going back and forth in my head, but I don't know. I finally just settled down on the middle ground, and we're gonna talk about it. So I got a question. How can you tell a genuine spiritual experience from a symptom of mental illness? Think about it. Now that's the challenge right there. That's the challenge when you're going on a quote-unquote spiritual journey. It's deciphering whether or not any of it is actually happening. If anything is real. If anything you're doing is working. Now that's the real challenge. You can't really tell in the moment. But really that's the evidence that it is working and that something's happening. Because in order for it to be working, there has to be a conflict. There has to be a conflict between the limited ego and the higher self. And if you was to ask me, I would say a higher self is almost like a representation of connection itself. Really connection with everything. Connection with other people. Connection with yourself. Just unity. And the first step to that is awareness. And it's crazy because it seems like the closer you pay attention to the source of the reality, which is the mind, weird shit just starts to happen. It's actually a good example of this in real life in quantum physics. It's an experiment called the double slit experiment. So basically, some people might have heard of this, some people might not, so I'm going to just explain it. But basically, the physicists found out that whenever it was a experiment going on and they would measure the results with an instrument, it would change the results of the experiment, basically. In other words, this is also called the observer effect. But I feel like this concept can be applied to your own level of awareness. And I firmly believe that our realities are largely a result of how we choose to perceive them. Simple. How you choose to perceive your reality can literally change it in real time. The way you look at it, it can change it. The feeling of it. And to me, the deeper feeling, that lets you know what's real and what's not real. Beyond surface level, beyond the looks. How do you feel? Speaking of how I feel, let's talk about YNs. Let's talk about how I feel about the YN craze on the internet. Cause I know everybody done seen it. But I got my own opinions. The real issue ain't the switches on the gun. It's the switch between aware to unaware. That's the real problem. It's emotional instability. Because as you notice, the whole concept of this is crashing out. But in order for you to crash out, you have to be emotionally charged to a point where you lose all sense of logic. Because a crash out is literally the last resort. You throwing everything away. But now it's being advertised, promoted like propaganda. Let's all crash out. You want to know some real spooky shit? Just watch somebody go from relatable to over complexity in a matter of seconds. If you are in your right mind, I guarantee you that's going to throw you off. It's going to confuse you and make you feel uncomfortable because it's not normal behavior. And just because it's being normalized, don't make it normal. Let's get it straight. That's a part of the problem. There's a lot of followers out here and they see something trendy, and just because it's trendy, it's the right thing. No, it's not. Especially now. If you couldn't tell, it's been infiltrated. There's infiltrators online and in real life. That's why you gotta know your rights and your lefts. Because how can somebody go from tolerable to a toxin, placing obstacles versus facing exhaustion to face the greatest problem?
Ugly.
Now, the reason why I was hesitant on whether or not I wanted to talk about bipolar disorder is because I realized I have no credentials or certifications in any shape or form on the subject. Now, however, I realized on second thought that I don't need a degree to speak on shit. All the knowledge and information is within. So, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm right, I'm right. But best believe I'm definitely going to give my point of view because I think it's valid. I think everybody's just valid, but it's up to you whether or not you can see the value in your own experience. Saying that to say, yes, I do think that mental problems can manifest into physical problems on the outside and in the physical body, but like everything else, it all starts from the mind, and that's a very spiritual concept. And I say that because I look at mental episodes as an initiatory experience at first, if you allow it to be. But if you don't act on it, yes, I do think it can manifest into a chronic diagnosable illness that you might want to seek some professional help for. But we deal with borderline psychotic thoughts almost on a daily basis. Completely sane people. So, yeah, I do believe those are opportunities to either dive into madness or rise into a new level of awareness. And really, that's like any situation that consists of emotional turbulence, because it can definitely be a reminder to build a stronger sense of direction and guidance when it comes to your feelings. Because when all this logical shit is exhausted and it almost feels like you can't be for sure about anything, that's going to be your last resort. Is your heart. That's going to be your last resort, your last compass when it gets completely dark. Now, as we move into this Gemini season, it can go one of two ways. The communication can get more clear or it can get more foggy. Now, whether or not that reflects externally on other people in the outside world is not up to you, but you have complete control over how you communicate. And I would say the most important, the highest form of communication you can do as a person is obviously communication with yourself, or your shadow, or whatever you like to go by. You could call it a double, a twin, but it's another you, the other side of you, the side that you wouldn't want to show on a surface level, that you wouldn't want other people to see, kind of suppressed almost. But it's almost like that's untapped power in that type of energy. You know, and everybody got a different life. Everybody has different tendencies. So not everybody's shadow is the same, but at the end of the day, it correlates to what I was talking about earlier when it comes to weaknesses. When it comes to war and dualism. Because if there ain't no communication with that other side, I mean, who's to say it is even there? You wouldn't even know it's there. Try something. After you get done listening to this, sit and have a conversation with yourself, but make it an uncomfortable conversation that you would never have in public. But you just see what you find. You know what I'm saying? See what you find. Yeah, and I say all that to say nothing. Yeah, and I'm gonna wrap the video up. Appreciate you for listening. Hopefully you caught something, anything, because I sometimes I just be talking. Sometimes I might say something, but I might have said a whole lot of nothing. But I might have said a whole lot of something. But don't just go off an assumption. Yeah, lock in with the channel, man. Subscribe, comment, whether it be some support or some hate. Either way. Start your angels. Hopefully something halfway interesting happens in the world so I can have something to talk about. But if not, I'm gonna find an excuse.